To be humble, to be kind, it is a giving of the peace in your mind. To a stranger, to a friend, to give in such a way that has no end. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other and nothing more. And to be bold, to be brave, it is a thinking that the heart can still be saved. And the darkness can come quick, the danger's in the anger and in the hanging on to it. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. And tell me what it is that you see, a world that's full of endless possibilities. And heroes don't look like they used to, they look like you do. We are love, we are one, we are how we treat each other when the day is done. We are peace, we are war, we are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other, nothing more. We are how we treat each other.
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Berkeley, where we gather each week at the intersection of the arts, justice, and spirituality. So glad to be with you here this morning. I'm Reverend Marcus Liefert, and I want to offer a special welcome to anybody visiting with us this morning. We hope that no matter who you are or whom you love, no matter how you make your living or how you experience the sacred, you'll feel welcome here among us in the fullness of your being. Everyone's invited to make your way across the atrium to the social hall after the service for a lunch that is served. Enjoy some time for connection and a good meal. We've also got our newcomer Q&A this week, so if you want to hear more about the church or have any questions that you want to ask, our connections coordinator, Charis Domodor, will tell you a little more about that later in the service. We have a memory table at the back of the sanctuary where you may write a joy or a sorrow, grief or gratitude, anything that's on your heart that you'd like read aloud during the service, or simply light a candle for a silent memory or prayer. We acknowledge each week as we gather that we gather here on the unceded territory of the Chochenyo-speaking Ohlone people, Huchiun, we know that we have inherited a broken covenant with the first peoples of this land and with the land itself. May we have the humility and the courage to do our part of healing and repair. And that's really what we're talking about this season of worship as we talk about the webs we weave and how they get broken and how we repair them, these strands that hold us connected one to another and to the more than human world. And today, those spirals and the rips and the anchor points that we can return to over and over again. Welcome to worship. Would you rise in body or spirit? And before we sing our first hymn, I'll just invite you to turn and greet your neighbor. You can tell them good morning, pass the peace, whatever is right for you.
Buenos dias. I'm Sandy Portillo Robbins, and I'd like to invite Adeline and her parents, Alice and Greg Lemieux, forward to light our chalice. Let us kindle our chalice flame with these words by Scott Taylor. Come with your joy, your incurable curiosity, your hunger for hope. But bring, too, your broken heart, your cracked confidence, your ruptured relationships. Let this, today, be a place of repair. May the words spoken become webbing, weaving again a path back to wisdom, back to forgotten worth, back to a place of peace, now buried by all the striving, worry, and wounds. May the sounds circling in this space sweep you up like a stream whose currents long to carry you home. And may the common breath, so sweetly shared between us, remind you that loneliness eventually lifts, that we are tethered more tightly than it sometimes seems, that together our hearts can mend and our world can be woven anew. Come, let us begin.
Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes. Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes. Some snakes eat insects, some eat rodents too. If they're in your garden, they're probably helping you. Most snakes don't bite anyone, of course there's some that do. But if you do not bother them, they will not bother you. Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes. Spiders catch flies in their webs, this is what I've been taught. Some of the strands are sticky and some of them are not. Spiders have 8 legs, they have 8 eyes too. They'd rather munch on insects than take a bite of you. Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes. La 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 la, la 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 la. Some people don't like spiders, some don't even like snakes. But if they knew how important they were, what a difference it would make. Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes. Spiders and snakes, spiders and snakes. I'm gonna learn to love them no matter what it takes.
Oh, thank you, Youth and Children's Choir. And Katie, I need a couple of volunteers to help me with our story time today. It's not so much a story as a demonstration. Can I get a couple of people? Oh, you two would be perfect. Come on up. So here, I'm going to have Em, why don't you stand over here? And Em, you're going to just take one side of that here. Is there anybody who you love in the world?
Yeah.
There's some people who you love? Yeah? Anybody you love?
Yeah.
Yeah? Good. Why don't you come all the way over here? Any of them in your family?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Excellent. Yeah. Anybody else love somebody in your family? Yeah. Good. Now, okay. See if you can. Why don't you take a few more steps back? And you let Em take a little more of that. Yeah. There we go. Okay. There, we've got it. So I'm just going to give you your string there. So now, here's the question: has any time that somebody you love, somebody maybe in your family, you love them, but they start to seem more like a spider or a snake? Have you ever noticed that? Yeah, you felt that?
Yeah.
Maybe with somebody up here on the chancel with you? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I thought that might have happened. And yeah, do you do things like that? You kind of like point your finger and yell at them sometimes, or maybe even hit them? That happen? Yeah. And it's like a moment like that, it's like someone came and just cut your string connecting you. You have this rip. But then, have you ever, when you have that, you're kind of holding that ripped string and it doesn't feel very good? Yeah, you know that feeling? But then you like remember that person over there isn't a spider or a snake, and you actually really do love them?
Yeah.
That you know that feeling?
Sometimes.
Yeah? And sometimes, yeah. And so have you ever done something about it when you have that feeling of like, oh wait, I want to fix that thing that broke between us? Yeah?
It's not very effective because he's really stubborn.
Sometimes it's not very effective, but you might try. You might try to, like maybe you apologize, or you invite them to do something you know they like to do, give them a turn using something of yours that you know they like, and so you kind of tie that broken spot back together. I'm not Catherine J, by the way. She's sick. This was her brilliant idea for today. And do you notice what just happened?
Yeah, it was back like normal before that.
It's back like normal. Is it any different than it was before?
Only a little bit.
Yeah? What's different?
It's like stronger, I guess.
It might be a little stronger in that spot. It also brought you a little bit closer together. Let's try that again. So if you might have another fight still, right? It doesn't just like fix it and it's fixed forever, right? But you might try and repair it again. And can you tell that you're a little bit closer together? And has anybody ever felt that? Like when you repair some break that's happened between you and somebody you love, that it can bring you closer together? It doesn't always work, but it's possible sometimes. Well, that's what I hope for you and for all of you, that there will be moments when these strands get broken. It always happens to all of us. But the repair will bring you closer to the people you love, maybe even to snakes and spiders. Will you join me in Rise in Body or Spirit, and we'll sing our children out. They're going to go on a little nature walk with Phil Maynard today. We're going to sing Return Again. It's Teal hymnal if you want the words.
You know, our body is so amazing. It has many ways in which it can repair itself. When you get a cut, our skin heals, sometimes leaving a scar, but healed and sometimes stronger. Our cells repair themselves. Our DNA repairs itself daily. Our muscles, too. When we exercise hard, we get micro tears and the muscles heal themselves, making them stronger than they were before. Now, our heart is a muscle too, but when it breaks, it often takes more than our bodies to repair it. We need time and people. When my mommy died, I felt like my heart would never heal. I was 29, and my mom was only 56. I've already outlived her by many years. It all happened so quickly. She was diagnosed with multiple myeloma in August, and she passed away in November. I was a medical technologist, and from what I had learned, multiple myeloma was supposed to be a slow cancer, but she had a very aggressive form of it. After she passed, I did not think I would ever get over it. Our whole family was hurting. I would start crying at the drop of a hat. She was all I could talk about. And a year later, I ended up needing back surgery for a ruptured disc. With time, I did manage to go on, and I was mostly happy. I met Richard, we got married, but I still felt like I had a hole in my heart. It was a dream after my first daughter was born that really made me feel like my heart had mended. Alejandra had just been born, and sleep was sometimes hard to come by. But one night, when I did manage to sleep, I had the most wonderful dream. My mom was up in our bedroom with the baby, and she was holding her. People would come over to see the baby, and she was the one showing her off. I woke up lighter than ever, and I felt like my mommy was there with me, even though she wasn't physically there. Afterwards, as the girls grew up, I could talk about her freely and tell them stories about my mommy. Their favorite story was when my mom and dad took us to Mexico, and my mom decided to leave her green card at home so she wouldn't lose it. Well, it's hard to get back in the country if you can't prove your residency, even back in 1975. I even started celebrating Day of the Dead to remember her and feel her warmth near me. After that dream of her holding and loving Alejandra, I realized the hole I had felt in my heart was filled with her spiritual presence. While I will always miss my mommy, I know her love will always hold us.
I invite you to take a moment to rest more deeply in your seat, to feel your connection down to this good, this holy earth, to notice your breath, connecting you with all that is, all that has been, all that will be. Storms rage and flood afar, hurricanes claiming life after life, home after home, while nearby fires blaze. Our neighbors or ourselves asked to evacuate, reminded of the limits of the safety of our homes. Daily, we are reminded we live in a time of broken covenant, that our ancestors have broken the covenant with the earth and one another, that brokenness is in our inheritance. No wonder some imagine a vengeful God thrashing about with fire and flood, exacting payment for the wrongdoing of our species. And a wrongdoer is killed in casa, and justice has been done, they say. Yet peace, that rare fruit of justice, still so far out of reach, perhaps even unwanted by the leaders who sharpen the jagged edges of age-old brokenness against one another. Who could be so foolish as to put hope in a God that allows such carnage? O great mystery, O Spirit of life, whose ground, whose center we know is love. God of firefighters and paramedics, of emergency shelters and safety nets, of social workers and mediators, help us to live in a deeper story. That in every brokenness is a live edge awaiting repair. That in shattered homes and burned out dreams lay fragments from which new life can be formed. That even in the most difficult times, gossamer strands of future possibility are already cast in communities like this one all over the earth, weaving a fragile but undeniable web of connection and reconnection, weaving a deeper story of hope. May this silence we share hold us in all our threads, in all our weaving, in all the ripped and broken places. In this community of care and witness, we hold one another through the seasons of our lives and light candles and read names aloud as we hold one another in care. With Russ today, we ask for prayers of healing for my dog Bodhi, who is suffering from multiple age-related illnesses. With June Sheffield, please send thoughts of love and support to my brother-in-law Javier, who is in a lot of pain with terminal cancer. With Nicole, we remember Helen Webb's long life. She passed peacefully the 15th, surrounded by love and by family. And with Jen McDougall, since last year, grateful for a new daughter-in-law, daughter-in-love, and a new grandbaby, Ronan O'Keefe. Grateful for all on my birthday today. Happy birthday. And with someone, gratitudes for the warmth and light of this community. May all that we have named and all that remains yet in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts be held in the loving embrace of this community. May we know all we bring is held in a deeper love, a nameless love that cannot and will not let us go. May it be so, and amen.
I'm like one of those Japanese bowls that were made long ago. I have some cracks in me. They have been filled with gold. That's what they used back then when they had a bowl to mend. It did not hide the cracks, it made them shine instead. So now every old scar shows from every time I broke, and anyone's eyes can see I'm not what I used to be. But in a collector's mind, all of those jagged lines make me more beautiful and worth a much higher price. I'm like one of those Japanese bowls. I was made long ago. I have some cracks you can see. See how they shine of
The Joins by Chana Block. What's between us often seems flexible as the webbing between forefinger and thumb. Seems flexible, but it's not. What's between us is made of clay, like any cup on the shelf. It shatters easily. Repair becomes the task. We glue the wounded edges with tentative fingers. Scar tissue is visible history. The cup more precious to us because we saved it. In the art of kintsugi, a potter repairing a broken cup would sprinkle the resin with powdered gold. Sometimes the joins are so exquisite, they say the potter may have broken the cup just so he could mend it. Imagine many of you know the theologian Martin Buber, famous for that I-thou relational theology, called us humans, said the thing that defines us as a species is that we are a promise-making, promise-breaking creature. And so we make these covenants and we break these covenants over and over again. And when we were planning for this worship series at our planning potluck, one of our community of worship artists said, you know, it's kind of like how we don't darn socks anymore. That we've lost touch with this art of repair, of taking what is and making it work. And it made me think about a professor I had at Vassar College, and this is the truth. I've never darned a sock in my life. I have a general idea that you'd have to just like wrap thread over and over again, but she was so infuriated about this. She was a professor of philosophy. It was an advanced philosophy course, but I remember one of the first sessions she spent scolding us all for not knowing how to darn our socks. And so now sometimes when I have a sock with a hole in it, I can't quite bear to just throw it away, even though I know that's what's going to happen eventually, but I know it's the wrong thing, and so I leave it sitting around as kind of, I think it's kind of like a penance, that I have to live with a sock with a hole in it for some amount of time before I'm allowed to throw it away. We do this, right? This is that justice system question we were talking about a couple weeks ago, where we create who is to blame and how should they be punished at every scale, even as small as in my own head with my own little sock. What would a different kind of accountability look like if accountability were not punishment, if it were not a kind of penance? What would it be? I've been reading Marilyn Robinson's new book, which is Reading Genesis. She's written a theological account of Genesis. She's the novelist who wrote Gilead and other books. But she, in her read of Genesis, lifts up the Cain and Abel story as this defining moment. You have Cain, the tender of the earth, right, the gardener, and his brother Abel tending the animals, and they come to make their offerings, and Abel has just this beautiful offering of animal meat, and Cain is jealous. That's Robinson's read. And so he puts together as best an offering as he can, but it's kind of born out of his jealousy. They're brothers. And, of course, famously, God prefers Abel's offering, and Cain is so upset that he murders his brother. It's the first crime in the Bible. It's the first homicide, certainly. And Robinson points out a couple of things about it. First, she says, you have to understand that it's Cain's story. This is a story about Cain. Abel, even the word Abel means emptiness or something transitory. So God never speaks to Abel in the story. So it's a story about Cain. She talks about a book group she's hosting, a Bible study at her church, and a couple people come who they're coming from a non-Western country. They're going to be at the college in town, and they come to her Bible study group, and as they start to toy with the story and get into it, they get a little indignant and say, what kind of a God would not kill a man who killed his brother? Because he doesn't, right? God in this story, it, she, they, doesn't kill, doesn't actually even leave any lasting repercussions for Cain except a mark of protection. I had a boss once who lied and manipulated. And it was a long time ago now. I still have a little bit of hard-heartedness in my heart towards her. But it's been long enough, I mostly don't think about her at all. But when I think about what I want for her, it is certainly not a mark of protection. But I do realize long enough now after I do want blessings in her life. I want her serving some purpose that she is aligned to. My brother and I, we fought a lot growing up. We had a younger brother, and it was a kind of constant simmering tension. I think I probably mentioned this in the past, and I realized I think he's the only person, pretty sure he's the only person I've ever hit in earnest. And we grew distant after that childhood of fighting. But these things, they tend to come back around and around and around again. Have you noticed that? The spiral nature of life? This way that the moments, the core themes of our spiritual journeys appear and reappear in different contexts throughout our lives. Whatever lessons we need to learn, we can be sure the universe will provide us opportunities to learn them over and over again. In fact, sometimes it feels like it just gets louder until you hear it. So these spiraling relationships also involve rips. Aliveness necessitates rips. One teacher of mine says that conflict is new information entering a system. Or the way that the West African teacher from Burkina Faso, Malidoma Patrice Somé, says that conflict is the spirit of the relationship asking itself to deepen. So these rips become an opportunity, become an invitation to grow closer, to get tighter in with what is real and most important. It's the subject of a new book this year from a transformational therapist and liberatory educator, justice activist Prentice Hemphill. It's called What It Takes to Heal. She's weaving together the social justice work that she has led as part of Black Lives Matter and other things, along with personal healing, and how these things are intricately interwoven. And she says that there's three things that we need to learn. There's three capacities that we need to develop our skills in creating. The first is authenticity. This is like what we were talking about for a season of worship last year around masks and taking the masks off, getting real with one another, sharing the actual contours of the broken places in our lives, as well as our joy, beauty, and creativity. So we need to get real, be authentic. Second, she says we need to work on our capacity for boundaries. She tells the story of a meal of reconnection with her father, who she was estranged from for years. And sitting across from him at the table, a kind of conversation many of us know, whether it's someone you've been fully estranged from or not, that conversation that begins in a place of guardedness and distance. And she talks about staying close in with the feeling of contraction in her chest, the bodily awareness of the cues telling her where her boundaries are, and says, what boundaries are the distance at which I can love you and me simultaneously. We have to practice this capacity to hold that distance, hold ourselves at the right distance. Some of us have an inclination, have a habituation to hold ourselves further removed, to stay guarded and protected in a way that doesn't allow that authenticity to flow forth. And some of us, I can relate to this, tend to be overly invested, overly trusting, coming in without checking our own boundaries. I had a colleague who talked about, sometimes we talk about boundaries as if they are about laying bricks. We have to kind of have a sturdy brick wall of boundary. But the problem with that is when something comes loose, or when we discover we need to retrofit it a little bit and it's not quite the right boundary, it can hurt people when it comes tumbling down. And so instead, we should understand our boundaries more like bark growing on a tree, organically coming forth to provide space, that distance between which we can love both ourselves and the other. Bark that is flexible enough can break and regrow. So authenticity and boundaries. And third, she says we need to develop more capacities to trust. We live in a world in which trust in one another, trust in our institutions is at an all-time low. And so we need to develop the capacities to build that trust back up. And I remembered reading her words about this, a conflict in another church that I belonged to. It was one of those big dramatic conflicts where everybody's getting heated on the listserv. You ever been part of a listserv conflict? Or I guess these days it might be on Instagram or Facebook, but those comments, they just go firing back and forth as quick as you can. And so somebody said, please, on this listserv, please, can we just trust our leaders? And someone fired right back, I don't think trust is a Unitarian Universalist value. How do we develop these capacities to trust? I think that vulnerability is actually at the root of trust. I know that in my life I have trusted overly much. I remember getting the feedback in my ministerial formation and my development from the official committees that tell you, so you need to worry about being a little overly trusting of people. It's going to get you into trouble. And they were right. But when those moments have happened, when I've trusted too much and gotten hurt, what I've learned is not to stop trusting, but to deepen where that trust is placed. Catherine Woodward Thomas talks about when we have that broken heart, and whether it's from a mother dying or a relationship ending or whatever it might be that breaks your heart open, you really only have two choices. You can harden and surround that place with armor and protection, or you can find in that broken, open heart the pathway to growth. You can grow a bigger heart around it. So we have to become vulnerable enough to offer up the frayed edge of our own string to another's hand, to bear the broken edge so it can be touched with gold. Parenting has been a constant source of teaching for me about this. When, especially with like a 3, 4, 5-year-old, to have any moment of dysregulation, of rupture between us. Dan Siegel talks about this as the high road and the low road, that parents need to find themselves on the high road. Because if you're on the low road, if the parent themselves is dysregulated, then the kid is never going to have a chance of getting regulated again. And so I'd noticed with my conflicts with Henry at 3, 4, 5, it didn't really matter how reasonable the boundary I was setting was, or what I was asking for, or how unreasonable Henry's behavior had been. If there was one loose thread of something I had done that was a little bit out of integrity, if there was one place where I was still hanging on to my low road, there was no chance Henry was going to hear what I had to say. I needed to repair and apologize for that one thread before we could get back on the same page together. So I think that these practices, whatever it is that we can practice to develop this capacity for authenticity, boundaries, and trust, these are the anchor points that we need. These are the places we return to over and over. The way Brene Brown says it is strong back, soft front, wild heart. But even after she articulated that, she said, oh, but man, I find myself over and over again getting into that guarded back, defended front, armored heart, because it's seductive. It seems like safety will come from that other path. What maybe helped me most, especially through conflict, finding the ways to stay soft front, strong back, wild heart in the midst of conflict, was a practice that I'm almost shy to tell you about, because it's been so misused by so many people, but it's called nonviolent communication. And if anyone has ever used nonviolent communication on you, I am so sorry. Nonviolent communication is a body of work developed by a psychologist named Marshall Rosenberg. And what attracted me to it almost 20 years ago now, I was a pretty young man when I came across his work, was first a theological claim that he makes. And it's a theological claim that we make. It's universalism in a very beautiful and succinct form. He says, anything that anyone ever does is an attempt to meet beautiful human needs. Anything anyone ever does is an attempt to meet beautiful and universal human needs. And to take that seriously is to radically reimagine how we think about justice and how we think about human relationships and how we think about evil and wrongdoing. But what's most useful then is he comes up with a practice that he organizes around 4 distinctions. And this is where some of this is taught as if it's like a formula for communication, which the name nonviolent communication would give you that idea. But it's really not. It's really, in my perspective, most useful as a meditation. 4 distinctions that are about where to put one's attention. So the first distinction is between observations and interpretations. To be able to name and know when I'm seeing clearly an observation of what has happened and when I'm layering my own interpretation on top of it. When I can articulate what's happened as a video camera might see it, as is common reality, and when I'm putting my own projections on top of it. So this first distinction, observations and interpretations. The second distinction he makes is between thoughts and feelings. How many times, how often when we say, I feel, do we finish that sentence with, like you did something wrong to me, right? In whatever way we do it. To get close in and be able to name and have a vocabulary of the bodily experience of our feelings as distinct from the thoughts about those feelings. So the second distinction, thoughts and feelings. The third distinction he makes is between what he called needs and strategies. And this is where the word needs might not even be the right one, but these universal values, life forces, drives that humans have, like the need to be seen and heard, the need for belonging, the need for agency and autonomy, the need for nourishment, the need for rest, right? These things that when we hear them, we know they're universal, everyone can connect to. And the strategies that we use to help get them. The strategies that can sometimes feel like needs, they're so ingrained in the culture, but which, when we can detach from them and stay close in with the need, give us more freedom and expansive possibility, especially in the face of conflict. So being able to distinguish a need and a strategy, and then last, his differentiation was a request and a demand. To be able to understand what it is to make a genuine request where we're willing to hear a no, versus so much of our interlocking systemed family communication where we're really trying to get someone else to do what we want them to do. Where that demand, and whether it comes with any kind of force or just an emotional pull, a guilt, a shame, is not genuinely allowing someone else to respond with choice. So these 4 distinctions, places of noticing, of placing attention in order to have more freedom, more possibility of repair. These are our anchor points for me. The trouble is, and the reason why you might have had a bad experience of someone using NVC on you, is as language, they can be used to try and bypass what's happening in our somatic experience, what's happening really in our bodies. And so, as a meditation, I hope that they might be tools to point us to and clarify the experience happening in our bodies, not a pathway to override it. Because it wasn't using NVC that got me and my brother reconnected. But we did get reconnected. We lived together for a little while, and I started noticing the ways that he had some deep knowing about how to take care of himself that I wanted. I wanted more of it. I started to see him as a resource in my life, as someone I could learn something from. To appreciate the ways he did things and his knowing, his boundaries with our moms. Wow, you can just relate like that? Remember the feeling in my body when we ended up at a camp in Mendocino National Forest. We were out in the wilderness for the weekend, in this incredible moment of reconnection after years and years of not really talking at all. And we got my truck stuck at the bottom of a ravine. And we really both were just in absolute despair. We were really worried. And we spent several hours lifting big river rocks onto the path that we had driven down, trying to figure out if we could get something to give us more traction. And both of us despairing. Finally, we give it one last try, and the truck, my brother's watching, apparently goes off the back wheels, off the edge of the curve but it makes it up to the top, and the two of us celebrating, reconnecting, hugging, cheering together, this feeling in my body of being on a team with my brother. It was a profound moment. It's a moment like taking the plate that my boss had given me, this plate of her creation, and just smashing it in a cemetery, burying the pieces and turning them over to something bigger to hold. Let time and spirit do their work. God gives Cain a mark, and often that's been interpreted as a mark of some kind of punishment or shame, this mark to stay away from him, but it's quite explicit in the story. It's a mark of protection. It's mercy in the shape of a scar. Sometimes the joins are so exquisite. They say the potter may have broken the cup just so he could mend it. May it be so, and amen.
I'm Pierce Sunho. I'm a member of your Board of Trustees. In our covenantal community, we share the responsibility for pursuing our mission by giving generously of our time, talent, and treasure. I invite you to support the work of our church by giving electronically, by scanning the QR code on the back of your badge, or by putting cash or check donation into the donation envelope that you'll find in the back of the pew in front of you, and then placing it into the donation box beside the fountain in the atrium as you leave the service. Each week, half of our offering is shared with a nonprofit Good Neighbor organization. The Good Neighbor organization for this month is the Greater Richmond Interfaith Program, also known as GRIP. GRIP is a multicultural, multi-ethnic coalition of congregations from varied faiths working together as a diverse and inclusive coalition dedicated to helping those of our community in need of transitioning to self-sufficiency. Will you please join me in the rededicating ourselves to our mission? We dedicate our offering and ourselves to the mission of this congregation to create loving community, inspire spiritual growth, and encourage lives of integrity, joy, and service. Thank you.
Good morning, buenos dias. The slides got ahead of themselves, I think. I'm Charis Domador, your Connections Coordinator. If you're new to our church and you'd like to learn more about how to get connected, I invite you to our monthly newcomer Q&A session today in the Zafir room after the service. Excuse me. To find out what's happening in the life of our community, you can always check the news link on the homepage of our website, where you'll find our weekly email newsletter the week ahead, which includes a list of activities, announcements, and contact information. This week, I want to especially lift up, Reverend Marcus will lead, today he will lead the Humanist Connections discussion at 1 p.m. in the fireside room with the topic, Wise Minds, Wild Hearts. Thank you. Toward an eco-humanism for the 21st century. Everyone is welcome. On October 27th, Personal Theology will host Anne Greenwood and Stephanie Ann Blythe, who will report on their recent travels to our sister church in Transylvania. And nominations for our Good Neighbor program are open and accepted until November 3rd. You can nominate your favorite local nonprofit to be one of UUCB's 12 Good Neighbors for 2025. Forms to nominate them are available at the social justice table outside in the atrium and on our website. Now let's rise once more in body or spirit and join in singing our closing song. Thank you.
When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we trust the wisdom in each of us, every color, every creed and kind, and we see our faces in each other's eyes, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when we tell our story from deep inside, and we listen with a loving mind, and we hear our voices in each other's words, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, heart is in a holy place. When we share the silence of sacred space, and the God of our heart stirs within, and we feel the power of each other's faith, then our heart is in a holy place. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place, we are blessed with love and amazing grace. When our heart is in a holy place, when our heart is in a holy place.
Invite you to reach out and touch a hand or a shoulder. Make real those threads of connection that keep us always together. Feel that bodily connection, that truth that we are one body and we depend on each other more than we know. May we spiral together in ever-widening circles. May we find that the rips between us can be mended and bring us closer together. And may we always hold those anchor points to our deepest self. May it be so, and amen.